Sorry everybody, it's Xilicks here, and welcome to my draft analysis for the Baby League. Now, if you guys don't know what this is a brand new league that was created by Lars, also known as El Scizor. You guys may know of him from the GBA and many other leagues that he participates in, but he just kind of randomly put out on Twitter that he wanted to make a league that featured the mons that you would see in LC. So as you can see, I have a Staryu. And it would be those mons. However, instead of playing it like Little Cup, you would actually play at level 50, and there are a couple restrictions. So everything above, I believe, 400 base stat total is banned. Also, the Eviolite item is banned, which is a huge part of Little Cup. So that is definitely going to change up a lot of viability for certain mons, because obviously, you know, Eviolite is a very powerful item on these sets. However, we are not going to have access to it. Also, items that are specific to certain Pokemon are also banned. So as an example, Cubone does not have access to the Thick Club. Things like Gorbis don't have access to the Deep Sea Tooth, or I believe it would be Clamperl. Either way, so all that stuff is banned, and then I'm pretty sure everything else is the same. The other big thing that differentiates it from Little Cup is because we're playing at level 50, not level 5. That means items like the Berry Juice are no longer as effective, really just not even worth bringing at all. And it is, because we're not using a Violate, it is going to make some items more viable, like the Assault Vest, or like Leftovers is going to be a bit more prevalent. So yeah, let's get into the draft and how the draft was done. So this was a free draft. There were no tiers. However, on our draft sheet, we had everything separated in base stat total. So we were able to see which mons were on the higher end of base stats and which ones were on the lower end. But we did not have any requirements. Everyone got to draft 10 mons with 2 Z crystals, and the RNGesus blessed us with the second overall pick. So I got to pick pretty much everything I wanted. There were a few snipes, really only one snipe that, well, technically two, that really hurt me. But other than that, you know, I'm pretty happy with my team, so let's get into it. So first up, I grabbed Staryu. The main reason for this is I wanted a Rapid Spinner, and I also liked Staryu because of its speed. 85 speed puts it at one of the fastest things. It's not the fastest possible, however, it's blazing fast with 85 speed. Its special attack is respectable with 70. Like, 70 is pretty high. So obviously these stats do look pretty low because we are dealing with mons in their base forms. However, obviously everything's stats are this low. So pretty much everything that's above 50, I want to say, is decent, and then anything above like 60, 70 is pretty high. And then obviously like anything above 80, 90 is whenever you get into the higher end of stats. So yeah, I like Staryu because Staryu can be run defensively. Now, it won't be as great as Starmie because it is missing the Psychic type, which means it does not resist like fighting types and all that. But without the Psychic type, we do have the advantage of not being weak to U-turn and knockoff, which is nice. However, 55 defense and 55 special defense is pretty good, even though our HP is kind of low, and we do get some of the niche moves that can help us defensively. But big thing here is Rapid Spin and just being a very fast, hard-hitting special attacker. Now also, that ability Analytic will allow us to hit even harder with our special attacks if we predict a switch, or even, we don't even have to predict a switch if they just happen to switch, or if a priority move is used against us. Basically, if we go second, we get a boost to our attack, which is really nice. So yeah, moving into the next pick, we have Munchlax for the second pick of the draft. Now, because I was second overall, all of my picks from here on forward were picked together. So Staryu was picked alone, and then on the way back, I picked Munchlax and one other thing. We'll be going over what that other thing was whenever we get there. But the main reason I picked Munchlax is because that HP stat is ridiculous. 135 HP is absolutely insane. So one thing that we do have to look out for is Seismic Toss is going to hit very hard because it's hitting for 50 damage, and not a lot of things have like 150 health. So with 135 HP, Munchlax is going to be able to take things like Seismic Toss. And then also it gives us a really nice special wall with that high special defense, and we can run Curse to buff that physical defense as well. And also 40 defense is not that bad. Like obviously we're not going to be taking like many physical fighting hits, but 40 defense isn't terrible, especially with how high our HP is. And also our physical attack is very, very respectable at 85. As far as ability goes, Gluttony will allow us to eat those berries a little bit early, and Thick Fat gives us a resistance to both fire and ice, which are some not too common offensive types looking at this tier. Oh, or not just the tier, but just the mons in general. There aren't too many threatening fire types or ice types, but it will be nice to have whenever we are going against those potential threats. And overall, I just like Munchlax. I guess it's just kind of baby Snorlax. Obviously, it doesn't get to abuse that Eviolite, which does make this thing a very threatening defensive wall with the Eviolite. However, even without it, we are still rocking some really nice stats, and it gives us the options to run some berries if we want to, taking use of that Gluttony ability. So moving in to my third pick, I grabbed Growlithe. Now keep in mind, Growlithe was grabbed at the same time as Munchlax, and Growlithe synergizes really well with Munchlax because we have that Intimidate ability. So obviously Munchlax isn't amazing in the physical defense category, it can still take hits, but Growlithe will help us with those physical attackers being able to intimidate them. We also have Flash Fire, which gives us another way of dealing with fire types if ever needed, and the Justified ability, which probably won't get much usage, but if we do think we are going against a team that has like Dark type spam, we can run that Justified. Looking at the stats of Growlithe, they're pretty decent all around the board. None of the stats are too bad except for physical defense, but the Intimidate will help us out with that. Our speed is pretty good at 60, our special defense is nice at 70. We have respectable attack and special attack, and then a pretty good HP stat to round it all out. So yeah, I am a fan of this Growlithe pick. And because we have Staryu as our water type, it will help us with our Fire, Water, Grass core, because Starmie will be able to spin away those rocks that Growlithe does not want to switch into. And speaking of Fire, Water, Grass core, for the next pick, I grabbed Snivy. So this is going to be the start of the second wheel. So Snivy, I went with this as a grass to finish up the Fire, Water, Grass, and also I really like Snivy just because we do get that contrary ability, so we can use the Leaf Storm to boost our special attack, and that's something that's going to be very threatening because none of these mons have very great defense and special defense, and especially with the Eviolite gone, Snivy just gets the quick Leaf Storm against a lot of teams and put in a lot of damage, a lot of pressure. We also still have the ability to run those like sub-leech seed sets and really just general coverage with like hidden powers getting boosted by Leaf Storm makes them very, very potent. And our stats are really good, speed being pretty high, not like an amazing speed, but 63 speed will allow us to outspeed a lot of things, and just decent defenses with both 55 and then an okay HP stat of 45. Our special attack isn't amazing at 45, but obviously with that Leaf Storm and contrary, we will be able to boost that up higher and higher. And yeah, I like Snivy. It kind of is showing a theme of my team so far that pretty much everything can be run either really offensively or really defensively, or just kind of a mix of both. And speaking of that, our next pick does not stray from that trend. Our next pick being Scraggy. So right away I was noticing a lot of people were picking fighting types. Mianfu went quickly, Timber, Riolu. So I wanted a fighting type of my own, and I kind of wanted a bit of bulk with my team, just because without the Eviolite and everything stats being lower as it is, having bulky mons is really nice, especially if they can be offensive as well. And Scraggy is a great example of that. We have the dark fighting type, so we do get the advantage of having stab knockoff, which is really nice. And then also the fighting types just kind of destroy in general in LC, so I wanted to make sure I had one. This gives us a second Intimidator, which is really nice to have a double Intimidate core. Also the Moxie ability if we want to use Dragon Dance to set up and sweep, or even like Bulk Up to set up and sweep. And then Shed Skin if we do want to run like just kind of something to sit there with Drain Punch and we don't want to be toxic or burned or whatever, we can run that Shed Skin to get rid of those statuses. Looking at Scraggy's stats, they're honestly really amazing. 50 HP is a little bit below average, but it does have 2 great defenses of 70 and 70 to really help out with that. Our special attack is trash, but we're not going to be using that anyways. Our speed is not amazing, but it's actually okay because we can run Dragon Dance. So if we do want Scraggy to be a more offensive bring, then we can run the Dragon Dance and outspeed a lot of things with that amazing 75 attack. So if we get a Dragon Dance and a Moxie boost, Scraggy is putting in work. 75 attack is absolutely amazing, and if we are able to boost that, this thing is going to be a threat. Scraggy normally has to fear fairy types, but because we're dealing with lower leveled mons, not a lot of things have access to Dazzling Gleam or Moonblast, other than obviously like fairy types. So that's definitely a huge advantage. Some things do learn like Play Rough or whatever as an egg move, so we will have to look out for that. But because there's no hidden power fairy, and not every team even has a fairy type, this gives Scraggy a pretty unique advantage, where normally Scrafty would be threatened a lot by fairies. But speaking of fairies, moving on to our next wheel, we have Flabebe. Now, this is where I got sniped because myself and many others wanted Spritzy, and Spritzy got taken, I believe, in the 4th round, and it is what it is, you know. So I have Flabebe. Flabebe is not ideal because, like, as you can see, abilities, nothing useful. Its abilities really only affect double battles, so we won't get any use out of the abilities, where Spritzy has the immunity to taunt, which is very nice. Also, Flabebe's physical defense and HP stats are very poor, while Spritzy has better in those stats. So obviously I would have preferred Spritzy, but Flabebe does give us a really nice secondary special wall while also having a decent special attack stat. So if we can set up Calm Minds with like a max HP, max defense setup, we will be very bulky and offensive at the same time, which is interesting. But Flabebe can still do similar things like pass wishes and aromatherapy and whatnot. Unfortunately, Flabebe does not get defog, unlike its evolved form Forgus. Forgus does get defog, Flabebe doesn't, but that is fine because Snivy gets defog and Staryu has rapid spin, so we are covered in the hazard removal department. It would have been nice to have another defog option on weeks that we didn't want to run either rapid spin or defog on Staryu or Snivy. But alas, this is what we have for Flabebe. It will be useful a lot of weeks for sure, especially if we're going off against like a really powerful special attacker, or even just like a fighting type that may not have a very good steel or poison move to hit us hard. So yeah, but we do have something that will cover its weaknesses very well, and that is going to be our next pick, which is Honedge. Now, I wanted a steel type to start building a fairy dragon steel core, and you know, I figured, hey, Flabebe is really good on the special defense, special attack side. Let's get something that's really good on the physical attack, physical defense side. So that's where we have Stone Edge. It is a steel ghost type. Now, having a ghost type is useful because we can stop rapid spin with that. We can also stop a lot of these normal type threats because there are a lot of normal threats running around. Now, obviously, they can run things like knockoff, but it is what it is. We do have the no guard ability to take advantage of attacks that may not have full accuracy, which is super useful in of its own. And 100 defense is a lot of defense. Like, our HP is pretty low and our special defense is pretty low, but we can run Assault Vest some weeks if we want to deal with that special defense being lower, and then use like the wish passes from our Flabebe to heal this thing up, or we can just run like leftovers and potentially even Life Orb. This does give us some priority with Shadow Sneak, which is pretty useful. Gyro Ball won't be as useful, so I believe Iron Head is going to be the move of choice for most weeks. But yeah, I mean, Honedge obviously isn't as great without the Eviolite, but it can be very good with setting up a Swords Dance and hitting things very hard. And it threatens out a lot of physical attackers just on the fact that they cannot really do too much to this thing unless they have like a stab super effective move. So I'm pretty happy with Honedge. I think it'll be like a good bring a lot of weeks, and hopefully it'll work out, because Next up, I have the dragon to round up our Fairy Dragon Steel Core. And that dragon is going to be Tyrunt. So this is our first Z user. Tyrunt is with that rock dragon type abilities. It has the Strong Jaw and Sturdy. Strong Jaw, it doesn't get to utilize too many bite moves. I know it gets like the Fangs and Crunch, which actually is pretty useful just for coverage. Rockhead would be nice to have for Head Smash, although I don't actually know if Tyrunt gets Head Smash. I'll have to check. But if Tyrunt does get Head Smash, then we will be able to click Z Head Smash or like Z Outrage or whatever. So Tyrunt is definitely going to be a nuke a lot of weeks. It can be a setup sweeper with Dragon Dance, or we can just use it as kind of like a defensive pivot, because 77 defense is pretty good, especially on something that is a rock and a dragon type. So we are rocking, no pun intended, a lot of resistances. Now we do have some difficult weaknesses to deal with. However, its weaknesses are covered very well by the rest of our team, and our Fairy and Steel types can help out with that. Obviously lacking the resistance to ground, but we do have Snivy that can deal with ground types pretty well. And yeah, so I'm pretty happy with Tyrunt as a pick. Lars likes to say that there are no good dragons in LC, so maybe we'll prove him wrong with Tyrunt. Hopefully we can prove him wrong with Tyrunt. So moving on, we have our next Z user, and that is going to be Helioptile. So I wanted an electric type late into the draft, and I wanted to make sure that whatever I was picking was pretty fast, which Helioptile is with 70 speed. And whenever I was looking at Helioptile, I was kind of in a toss-up between this and then also Joltik. But whenever I looked at Joltik's moves, I saw that it did not get Sticky Web. Now, Sticky Web would have been very advantageous for our team because it helps things like Snivy outspeed, it helps things like Tyrunt outspeed, it helps things like what would have been Joltik, and then also Scraggy outspeed some things because they are kind of in the middle of the speed tier. But whenever I saw that that thing did not get Sticky Web, then I was like, okay, I don't want it. I'd rather have Helioptile. And so this is going to be our second normal type. However, Helioptile isn't really like big on being a normal type. It's obviously more so for its electric type, but the normal type does help because it allows us to have stab on like ground types, electric types, and grass types that would normally resist our electric attacks. Now, stat-wise, this thing is not very good. Its defenses are very low, its HP is very low, but we're not obviously going to be sending this thing in to take hits. It's mainly just going to be there to Volt Switch around, maybe fire off some Gigavolt Havocs, or breakneck blitzes to hit our enemies very hard. Helioptile is also the second fastest mon on our team before any boosts, because obviously Tyrunt and Scraggy can Dragon Dance, and then like we can run Choice Scarf on various other things as well. But Helioptile will be a good Choice Scarfer just because of its already high speed. It'll allow us to outspeed basically everything below it running a Choice Scarf, so that is nice. As far as abilities go, they are all weather related. We don't really have like a weather centered team. There are, I believe, 2, maybe 3 teams that grabbed weather. I know that Hippopotas was taken, Lone Vulpix was taken. I don't know if regular Vulpix was taken. It may have been, but either way, if we ever do go up, well, when we do go up against those teams, we could run some of those abilities to take advantage of that if we see that Helioptile would be a good bring. But I'm not too focused on the abilities here. Mainly just want this thing to be a nuke with a Z move some weeks and also give us some Volt Switch momentum, which will help us with our Intimidate core and also just being able to bring things in like Staryu or potentially even like Snivy or something to get off some damage or take some hits, whatever it may be. I do like Helioptile, and the fact that it's incredibly frail doesn't really faze me too much, so hopefully that doesn't come back to bite us ever. Then for my final pick, we have Cubone. So whenever I picked Cubone, I mentioned I got sniped twice. This was one of the snipes. Originally, I had wanted, I believe, Sandshrew, because Sandshrew can set up rocks and spin them away. Sandshrew got taken. I wanted Phanpy as well, but Phanpy also got taken pretty early on, I believe. But Phanpy actually does not have Rapid Spin, I learned later on. So it may have been a good thing I didn't pick it. But yeah, so we do have Cubone. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the Thick Club item is banned. So unfortunately, I cannot take advantage of that. However, we are still rocking some pretty decent stats with 50 HP, 50 special defense, very good 95 defense, and 50 attack honestly isn't terrible just to fire off Earthquakes, because a lot of these offensive mons are very frail, and I can just click Earthquake on a lot of things and do damage to them, even without the huge attack stat, and then obviously the added from the Thick Club. As far as abilities go, I'm really liking the abilities. Battle Armor prevents critical hits. Lightning Rod gives us a special attack raise and immunity to electric. We'll probably never use that because we already are immune to electric. And then the Rock Head prevents us from taking recoil damage if we ever run any attacks that have recoil. So probably will be running the Battle Armor just to prevent critical hits. However, Rockhead may come in useful from time to time. So yeah, I wanted to pick up a ground type just because I wanted that electric immunity. We did already have a resist with Snivy, and then also like a really good switch in with Munchlax. But having like a straight up immunity is nice because it stops volt switching around, and also just having Stab Earthquake, as I mentioned, is going to be very useful as well. And I wanted a Stealth Rocker that I can reliably put rocks on every week. So Cubone is going to do that for us every week that we feel we need him. He'll probably be packing Stealth Rocks unless we're running some really heat set of some kind. But yeah, that is going to be it for my 10 Mons. Looking here, we can see them all together. I'm pretty happy with my team. It's not perfect. We definitely have some weaknesses. I may make some trades later on, like potentially getting something with Levitate or like a bug type or something to help us with our ground weakness, because we do have, I believe, 4 ground weak mons, but at the same time we have a lot of ways of dealing with ground types, so it's not like we just straight up lose to a ground type. And obviously we're not going to be bringing those 4 mons every single week as well. But other than that, you know, the squad is looking pretty solid for what it is. Now, another thing that's worth mentioning is this is going to be a pretty short league. There are only, I believe, 8. Yes, there are 8 battlers, and it's going to be 7 weeks of the regular season. We battle everyone once, and then there will be a playoffs afterwards for the top teams. I'm not entirely sure all the stipulations on that. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, but pretty much everybody here is very inexperienced when it comes to LC, and then obviously this isn't like normal LC, so none of us have really played like this before with small mons at level 50, so this will be a new experience for everyone, and you know, hopefully we can do well in it using our knowledge from the normal game. And everyone is pretty experienced when it comes to that. We do have some GBA analysts in there, a GBA D-League former coach, and then a GBA main season coach, as well as some other known members of the Draft League community. And everyone's pretty friendly, so this is going to be a very fun season. I'm extremely excited, so make sure to check out the description, because I should have the channels linked down there if you want to see who all is in the league, as well as subscribe to me if you want to stay caught up with the league, and then follow me on Twitter for any updates. So yeah, I will see you guys next time. Kiddings, bye.